Hello everybody, this is our 2025 Create US Open bot for 316W Wally. This bot went 8-5 in the green division, which is pretty okay considering that the green division was pretty hard. Um, we made it to semifinals where we lost to Baker, but we did beat Monty in quarterfinals because their solenoid exploded, so that was pretty good. Anyway, starting with the drivetrain. We're running 450 on 3.25, just like the majority of teams. We chose to do a 8-wheel drive just because since we're running all Omnis on 6 wheels, it just didn't really have that much traction for like pushing and stuff. So this still has good turning, has good speed, but we still got good traction out of it. And we're just running our 6 motors, just flat like this. Lower cog, we just found it to be easier than doing a stack setup, and we still had enough room for our intake ramp. Moving on to the Mogo Mech, this isn't my specialty, but it's not hard, it's just straight top down like most teams, running 25 mil pistons on a 3-ride with standoffs. We have this this high strength bar right here off of spacers for the Mogo rest. One thing more to note about the drivetrain is this: it's a 26 hole wide or a 13-inch wide bot, so getting the goal to grab omnidirectional on both sides was kind of difficult because we didn't foresee that we would have to gut out these channels until the robot was kind of like already being built. So that's why it's kind of a little bit janky here, but it worked out in the end. And moving on to the intake. So intake, we're running 11 watt because our Org does not have 5.5 watt motors. Kind of jank, but we made it work. So as you can see, the motor is positioned right here, and it's running a 36 tooth to 36 tooth here, and those 36 tooth gears are then 1-to-1 down to here, which then are chained 1-to-2 to the pre-roller. So since it's a blue cart, the conveyor is running 600 RPM and the intake rollers are running 300 RPM. Our intake is just box style channel arms with a C channel cross brace and poly triangle gussets to make it strong. And we have these poly flaps to hold the ring while they're going up. If I can get a ring. I'm too lazy to make the robot run right now, but as you can see, we just have the sleds here. They're really bent, and our original set that we brought to the tournament snapped, so we had to replace them. So they go up that, and then we added these poly strip things that after they go up the sleds, they hit the poly strips and then go up here, so that after that the intake can transfer like that. We tried to design it similar to 31V drumroll please's Haunted. Their redirect bots intake had like a really good transition between the intake pre-roller and the conveyor, just because there was no counteraction between the pre-roller and the conveyor, like they weren't counteracting against each other. So we tried to design around that with the distance in between. Like that. And as you can note, we have our wall rollers here, and if you'll note, there's these standoff flares here, which aren't as efficient as poly flares, but you can see this curve here. We also had this curve on the bottom, because on our state slot, we noticed that sometimes when there were like 2 rings, we'd be driving, and the 2 rings would literally just get like stuck there, and it would be kind of awkward trying to intake. Like if it was a red and a blue, trying to get the right one was kind of difficult. So we kind of wanted to like narrow like the gap a little bit, so that's what those like curves on both sides were for. But we noticed that it was really bad for like auton consistency. So like 1/3 of the way through Quals, we just took off the poly flare and replaced it for the standoff, just to give it a little bit more consistency because there's a wider range of intaking. And moving on from that, oh yeah, shout out to 1082E carbonated potato. We noticed when we were tuning things that our like contact with our flex wheels was really bad. Like it had barely any contact, so it wasn't assisting much with like flipping the ring onto the goal. And we when we tried it, we noticed that our L channels were like exactly in line with where we would want to put the flex wheels. But during that same practice where we realized that, we saw that video with 10A2E where they just gutted it, so we also did that, and it made our conveyor a lot better at scoring. And I think that's it for the intake. We have double doinkers, just C channels with hooks on the end. For our autons, what we did is we used the doinkers to sweep off the top ring from the 2-stack, and then we scored Alliance Wall Stake, and then we used that ring that we sweeped off to put on the Mogo, and then we put more rings on the Mogo. And then like halfway through elims, we realized that we were gonna miss Glow Rush against 6842V Vicious Vortex. So we coded up in like 15 minutes or something. We coded up a new elims auto. Instead of going for goal rush, we just tried to put as many rings. I think we got like 3 rings on 1 goal for the positive side. And we just used one of our doinkers and drove under the ladder and hooked one of the rings and drove it back and taked it. So that was really nice because we could do it for both sides just because we have double doinker, and clearing corners from any side was also pretty nice. Moving on to the Lady Brown, which is probably the most jank part of this bot, because it was thrown together towards the end before we had to leave. It's similar to 18522R's earlier design with like the angled basket to get it like to get the ring more like pushed down straight to be more consistent than hitting the pole and scoring, because this was just much easier to tune since we had like no time. So it's just 100 RPM motor, 1-to-1 on this 36, a lot of slop. So we added a rubber band to make sure that our rotational sensor readings wouldn't get messed up if like for whatever reason this arm like moved or whatever, so that our arm wouldn't get like messed up during the match. And you'll notice we have this aligner here that's like blocked off, so it's like halfway useless. The reason these standoffs are here is because we messed up and realized that we didn't, because our state championship didn't require us to have a hard stop for our Lady Brown. We just told them that we had a programmed hard stop and they accepted that. So we didn't realize going to US Open that we would need one. So we had to add this after inspection, and that like kind of made the aligner less helpful, but it still has this like triangle shape, so it did help somewhat. But we didn't really end up during the US Open doing wall stakes too much. We just made Mogo plays most of the time, so that was the main thing. Also, as for our cog is low. It's nice because we mounted our battery under here in between the drive motors, and we have our tank squeezed in underneath this motor. Like there's barely any clearance with our hooks or anything, but we got to squeeze it in down there. And like the only high weight on our robot is all this stuff that's going on with the Lady Brown, pretty much. That motor, all this metal that's up here. But other than that, our cog was really low, and it was really nice to drive, as seen by some of the crazy Mogo plays we were making during elims and a couple of the quals too. So we'll be also releasing maybe a season recap, but definitely a US Open recap video with some of those clip highlights. But we will see you guys next season.